Hey, everybody who's trying to study for their AP Stats exam. This is Mr. O'Connell. This is just going to go over the free response portion of your study guide for Unit 3 for AP Stats. This is just 4 questions. We'll try to make it kind of quick. A new drug. So number 1, a new drug to treat senioritis is going to be tested to see if it will reduce the laziness in the population of seniors. A random selection of seniors are selected with half receiving a placebo and the other half actually receiving the experimental drug. Early indications suggest that the effectiveness may depend on the student's weight and gender. So I'll actually say it doesn't necessarily say that these seniors are fourth-year high school students. It could be senior citizens, if anybody took offense to the problem. Draw a graphic or flowchart how you would perform the experiment without blocking. So the subjects you're testing are random seniors, and you should be splitting them up into half of them getting the actual drug that you're testing and half of them getting a placebo, which is essentially a sugar pill that'd be used for blinding here, so they think that they're being treated, although they're actually receiving nothing. So right there at the end, compare laziness. However, Part B, draw a graphic flowchart of how you would form the treatment and control groups if you wanted to control or block for gender and weight. We're still going to start with the random seniors. Then we're going to start blocking. The first block, gender, will have male, female. This is not a factor. These are separate blocks. And then for weight, we could probably say maybe H for heavy, A for average, and U for underweight. So heavy, average, underweight. Female also heavy, average, underweight. These are all blocks, not factors. And then the actual factor, what you're experimenting for, is the heavy males getting a drug versus a placebo, the male average person getting drug versus placebo, and under drug versus placebo. Same thing with all the females. All right, great. So your flowchart, your graphic should look kind of like this, and at the very end, some type of comparison for that experiment. Comparison. All right. Take a good look. So number 2, a town is proposing a property tax increase to update a dilapidated school. While wondering if it'll pass, they decide to randomly poll potential voters. Describe what type of sample is being taken for each. A, obtain an alphabetical list of all potential voters in the town and number each potential voter. Use a random number table, I would also say, or generator, to select 50 people to ask how they would vote. Ignore repeats. This is a pretty textbook example of a simple random. Simple random sample. Ramble. This would really be the best way. Another way, they could take every potential voter's name and put it in a hat and draw it. It could be something as easy as that. B, go to the local grocery store and ask everyone I would even say everyone in one checkout line. So you're going to have to determine, since these are subgroups, you have to determine whether this is going to be a cluster or a stratified. And remember, the difference between cluster and stratified is stratified groups are not going to look like the whole population. You're going to separate them into different ones. So that means, like, when I gave an example in high school, you would sample the seniors as a strata, you would sample the juniors as a strata, sample the sophomores as a strata, versus a cluster would be more like a PE class where you could have some freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors all in the same place. So that sample actually looks like the greater population. Here, I would think one checkout line looks like the greater population of all checkout lines. So I think cluster is the better reason. Also, break it down a little bit more. A cluster sample should be almost like a mini census. And when it says everyone, that's kind of a clear giveaway for that one. C, go to the local grocery store and ask every 12th person who's entering the store. This one's a giveaway. Systematic. Anytime they're going to bring numbers in where it's every nth person, you should answer systematic. D, ask somebody, ask some people you know in the town. That could probably lead to some bias since it puts a lot on you, but you should probably say this is convenience. This is a convenience sample. E, take a random sample of people who shop at Dollar Tree versus people who shop at Walgreens versus people who shop at Whole Foods. With the caveat, most people who shop at Whole Foods are probably a little bit wealthier than the others. As I've come to call this, Whole Foods is whole paycheck. So here you're thinking that the people at Dollar Tree are going to be different than the people at Whole Foods, who is different from the people at Walgreens. Since all of these little groups are going to be different, we would call this one an example of a stratified. And what problem or bias could come from only sampling the people at Whole Foods? Well, you wouldn't get a real big picture there. It would just be the people who are probably a little bit wealthier. So you wouldn't get the representation of anybody who wasn't wealthy. You probably hear one of my cats over there in the background. That's Dio. Anyways, so that would lead to undercoverage, because you wouldn't be able to have anybody's sample who wasn't wealthy. All right. That'll definitely pop up a couple times. 3, so you don't have to actually answer the question. A group of students is investigating opinions on campus about the U.S. military. They randomly sampled a group of 100 students on campus and asked them one of two questions. Do you think that transgender people should be allowed to serve in the military? Or B, do you think that transgender people should be provided an equal opportunity to serve and protect their country? The actual question I want you to answer is, which question will elicit greater support for inclusion of transgender people in the armed forces? That should be a dead giveaway. Is that the question B is definitely trying to elicit that type of response, which is known as a response bias, which is also referred to as just a wording bias. Because if you're phrasing it like B, they're actually trying to elicit a certain response from you. Let's see how much time I have on this. I'm not going to be able to finish 4 in this window, so I'm going to put that to the next video.